Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first. Oh, let me be professional. Well, I forgot this was the first one of 2024. Welcome to the first live show of 2024 for the Literally Dead Book Club. This was our first time reading a short story collection together. It's called Out There Screaming, edited by Jordan Peele, an anthology of new Black horror. I have my friend Erin here. I just woke up. I'm so sorry, everybody. I also have a hockey game to get to very soon, so we're gonna keep it snappy. Erin, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself. I just did it, but I didn't prepare you with any questions, so I don't want to catch you off guard. Do you want to just tell us something about yourself?
Hi, friends. My name is Erin. My channel is Booked and Busy. I read a little bit of everything, but I would say I primarily read fantasy, sci-fi, and romance. I am a fan of horror and mystery, and I'm exploring my horror tastes more and more.
What a great intro. Thank you. I am away on well, actually not tournament, it's playoffs. This is the end of the season. Stakes are high. I'm excited to see how everything goes, but I'm more excited to find out what everybody thought of this anthology. I think my first question, just before we get into the individual stories, and Erin and I are going to go back and forth, kind of talking about the plot vaguely of each one, or just like what we thought of it. My first question is, oh wait, I have questions. Hold on. Oh my God. I literally am so asleep. Do you read horror regularly? What about anthologies? And have you ever read a horror anthology? I guess I'll answer first. I love horror. Horror is one of my top genres. I read a lot of anthologies, which is why I thought it would be exciting to read it with you all, because I know a lot of people in this book club have not picked up a ton of short story collections. And while I know this one was hit or miss for so many people, I thought it would be a good introduction to horror. So that's me.
I wouldn't say that I read horror regularly. I probably read like a handful of horror books every year, and this is only the second anthology that I've read. The first one was Book of Swears that we read together.
It was. I forgot to add a link to that discussion. I don't know if anybody would care to watch it at this point if you didn't read it with us, but Erin and I did anthology together on her channel last year. Oh, never read anthologies. Love to read horror. First anthology in a long time. So many different experiences with the genres.
Can I tell you my conspiracy theory
Okay.
about this book? I just feel like this is a great time. I think that this really was just Jordan Peele like soliciting new ideas to develop.
Oh, interesting. I feel like talking about the Jordan Peele of it all. I love his movies. I love his concepts for sure, and I think that every single time there's an editor putting together an anthology, like it's done completely differently. Sometimes people submit it. Sometimes the editor is like reaching out to people individually to write a story for them. This one to me felt very much like people were writing to appeal to Jordan Peele. Like they were not writing their passion projects. They were not writing just like a horror that could go in any anthology. They were trying to meet Jordan Peele where his horror is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think about this one. Okay, my next question is, oh, what authors in here have you read from before?
I've read from 5 authors in here before. So
Great.
I've read from N.K. Jemisin, Rebecca Roanhorse, Tananarive Due. Well, that's an asterisk. Nnedi Okorafor, and P. Djeli Clark.
We have like the exact same list, probably because those are the authors who wrote full-length novels.
But what's interesting is all of those authors, for the most part, with the exception of P. Djeli Clark, even though he kind of is, all those authors are fantasy authors.
They sure
They
are,
don't write horror.
which is why I said what I said about the Jordan Peele of it all. I don't want to get into my opinions about the anthology quite yet, but I kind of do because this was not horror. This was not horror. Sorry, everybody, for picking a horror collection. This was not horror. This was fantasy. This was sci-fi. This was speculative.
There's this one line in the like top portion of the flap that I think really kind of encapsulates the aim of this project. And this says it explores the terror, not just the terrors of the supernatural, but the chilling reality of injustice that haunts our nation. And that is something that I struggled with, and we'll get into it when we're talking about the stories. But a lot of the like I know that this is an anthology of new Black horror, and the main horror of being Black in America is racism. But there were so many stories about Jim Crow, and I was like, I don't want to read about Jim Crow. I'm all Jim Crowed out, you know?
There was stories with horror for sure. I wish that it referred to itself as speculative. I wish that it used the word speculative because I think it just would have pitched itself to the correct audience, because I've also read speculative anthologies that were so similar to this that I would recommend more in tandem than the horror anthologies that I have read. I just wasn't expecting 0 out of the 19 stories to be rooted in reality. Like slashers, like killers, like kidnappings. There wasn't one singular not speculative story, and that was surprising for a collection. I have read from 7. I think the only one else that I had was Aaron E. Adams as far as a full-length novel, but then 3 more of these authors I've read other short stories from in other anthologies.
I feel like it would be interesting to look and see, like, I know the authors that I've read from are all fantasy authors, but I wonder how many of the authors here traditionally write fantasy versus our actual horror authors.
I think probably half of them have only ever written short stories before. They contribute to magazines and other anthologies, and those all seem to be speculative from what I saw. What do you look for in a short story? I know you haven't read a ton of them.
I want to be surprised, and I want to be entertained. That's really what I'm looking for. I want to be surprised and I want to be entertained.
That's not too much to ask for.
That's why that one story, Book of Swords, worked so well for both of us, because it was surprising and it was fun.
Yeah, I would say I think a short story needs to have a moment. I think it has to have like a tone shift or a killer line or a twist or a reveal. Like if I wanted a slice of life story, or I wanted, a really atmospheric story, like I would pick up a novel. You know what I mean? I'm looking for something to surprise me. You have 15 minutes of my time, and I want you to know what your own concept is and what you want me to feel in those 15 minutes that we're spending together. My last question is, what is your mathematical average rating? Like, I want to know I want to know everyone's actual number before we get into the stories. This is where we reveal our ratings. I want to know what it actually got. Not like, oh, it felt like a 3, it felt like a 4, it felt like a 5. What's the actual number if you rate them individually?
I'm not rating books this year, but I feel like if I was to do that, it would be like a 1.87. Oh! Okay, a short story has to be to want to DNF it.
We officially got the news. Erin did not like the anthology. I am not surprised. I am not shocked. I had a feeling before it started that it could be, it could be a miss. But as I was reading it, I was like, oh, Erin's not going to like this. 7.3. A 4, a 3. You got to figure it out.
I did stories that I thought would be great, like to be made into movies. I'm like, I literally wrote, this would be an excellent adaptation.
Yeah, I wrote for a couple of them too that like this should be a novel. This should have been a full thing. We really have ratings across the board from like 2s to 5s. I just made that up. I haven't seen a 5, but I've seen like a 4.8. I gave it a 3 on Goodreads when I finished it, and then when I did my math, I got exactly a 3. So there were some stories that were 4s. There were a lot of stories that were 2s. So that's how my ratings shake up. And now we'll go through each one.
Was there a 5-star story?
There was one 5-star story. What about you?
No, I'm so intrigued. I gotta know which one was that.
Well, let's begin.
Okay.
Let's start with Reckless Eyeballing by N.K. Jemisin. This is an author we've both read from before. This one, what did I wrote down? There's a cop main character. He gets obsessed with like eyeballs. He sees eyeballs as headlights. And he like takes advantage of his position and pulls people over to figure out what the eyeballs mean. At one point he killed somebody. Sorry, this is full spoilers. I hope people knew that. The guy kills somebody. And then at the end, there was this moment where he was like cutting open his arm and there was eyeballs underneath. That was the story. What did you rate it?
I would say I'll probably give that one like a 2. I wrote that this was unhinged, and I didn't really enjoy following a corrupt cop, especially a black corrupt cop. And I said, beyond that, I'm not really sure I understood the point. I'm not sure I understood what was happening because I feel like with the end of any project, I should know what happened or like know what the point or like the answer was. And I don't think I felt that with a lot of these stories. And maybe that's my expectations being, not correct going into a short story. But I was just like, what was the point?
Yeah, I wrote down the exact same thing. I said I didn't quite understand what the purpose was of this. I thought it was an interesting way to kick off the anthology because it like was kind of shocking right away. I historically hate eyeball stories, but that's like a good thing because it is horror. That's scary. Eyeballs are freaky. I don't want anything near mine. I don't want to see yours up close. No, thank you. But I gave it, when I finished the story, I gave it a 3. Because like I was kind of entertained. I like N.K. Jemisin's writing. And then as I went on through the anthology, I hated so many stories that I was like, maybe this one should get a higher rating. So then I gave it a 3.5. Everybody kind of seems to agree. I don't see anybody saying they absolutely loved this one. The next one we have is Iron Tooth by Rebecca Roanhorse.
I wrote that I enjoyed the unexpected element in this one, and that Zelda was essentially a vampire? Question mark. I'll probably give it 3.5.
I gave it 3.5. This was like the people who, it was like a sibling duo, and they went to this farmhouse, and there was a haunting, and there was a little girl in the house, and then they found out the little girl was the one haunting the place, which is just like such like a classic reveal. So I didn't have any real issues with it. And then you kind of find out that, the monster is actually the hero at the same time. And that's kind of cool.
And it's like, not instead of vanquishing you, we're going to just take you home with us.
I said things that I disliked was like, it was so unrealistic to me. The fact that like she left her brother alone to be drugged by these people. And like so many of the bad things that happened didn't seem to make sense with the character that she had told us. That she was.
Also, him being poisoned by beans was just crazy.
I would definitely recommend you read Rebecca Roanhorse after this. For those of you who had a good time with it, it is very in line with her novels. The characters, the concepts. Okay. Next was Wandering Devil by Caldwell Turnbull. Oh, hated this one. I hated
horror at all. At all.
Okay, this one. Oh, this was the one about the man who was like in a relationship, and then he was just like talking about his relationship with his nieces and his coworkers, and it was just like so slice of life. I think it was like allegory for like being content in life, but like feeling FOMO and like nothing is good enough and always wanting to find something new. I didn't see the point of it. I gave it a 1.5 stars.
Yeah, I would give it a 1 star too, because I was reading, I was like, when's the horror coming? Like, this is just mundane every day. Like, there's a little age gap. There's this. I'm like, okay. And then, of course, nobody's going to look for him because they just assume he left.
Put it on 3 times speed.
Like, no. You're reading from this author.
It was funny because when I finished it, I was like, I think that I didn't like the plot, but I kind of liked the writing of it, even though I gave it a 1.5. So I would consider reading a novel. That's what I thought it was. Oh yeah, not many people liked it. See, it's good to have different opinions though, because I see a 5. So it's, we're all so different. And I think that that's great. Most people seem to give that one a little one.
If you go into each story just like, I'm going to appreciate this story for what it is, I think that could be a good story. But when you're going into this is the second story in a horror anthology, I'm expecting certain things, and that expectation is not met with that story. Like, I don't think they should have been included in the collection, to be honest, because it's like, I think it's the furthest one away from being horror.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I feel like the stakes could have been higher. Like, you could have given us like a really bad guy rather than just like a casually shitty guy who's getting like punished for his actions. Like, make him actually shitty, and that would have been a more compelling situation. Next is Invasion of the Baby Snatchers by Leslie Neka Arima.
I don't understand what happened here. 3 question marks.
I gave this 2 stars. And I think that this is one that when I was skimming the Goodreads, and I'll check the comments in a second, but people seem to love this one. And I Okay, we got 2, we got 3. I didn't get this one. It was sci-fi. Like this was not horror. Like yeah,
Mhm.
body horror, sure pregnancy, the government controlling people's bodies and like aliens coming and taking over people's bodies. Like I get it, but I didn't understand. Like it wasn't scary.
Like the one baby that was born and they were recording the video, and then the baby like unhinged his jaw and then like ate the doctor. And I'm like, what? And then this one lady was trying to get pregnant, or they were like, you know what you did, and you let this lady lose. I was just like, I don't understand. I feel like I missed something. Like
Yeah. It was
3
very
chapters.
vague. Yeah, I did like the concept as well, but also like I don't like sci-fi and horror together, which is why this anthology was not for me in a lot of ways because it mixed together those two things. I like my sci-fi. I like learning. I like fun, stupid stuff. I don't want my sci-fi to go scary. And this one didn't accomplish that anyway. So yeah, this one. So and this one's the most split, I think, of everybody so far. Okay, the other one by Violet Allen.
This is one of my favorites because it was
Oh,
unhinged. Angela, I literally wrote Angela was crazy. Probably this is a 4-star story.
I gave it 4. I actually gave it a 4.5 and then I erased my 5. This was the one where the woman was like amidst a breakup with her boyfriend, and then she got a text from this other woman who like ripped out his heart and sent it to her. I was like, come over. And she just went. And then I don't know, it felt like kind of Frankenstein-y by the end because she had to decide if she wanted to like put him back together or just like manipulate him to stay her boyfriend. It was really fun.
And the fact that she decided not to, she's like, nah, he'll just love me without his heart. It'll be great.
I'll just keep him like this.
Don't say anything because we'll send you back to the mental hospital. I'm like, what?
And I liked that it wasn't just the situation with like with him that was weird. The whole thing was completely surrealism. Like there's one point where she like touched her phone and her phone bit her. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what are we talking about? And then there was like ants everywhere. I also didn't understand this one completely, but like it was so weird that I had a good time.
And I feel like because they set her up as an unreliable narrator, my lack of understanding, I didn't think it was because I didn't understand what was going on. It was like our character is already unstable. And like a critter tells her to come hang out and bring liquor and cigarettes and money. Like, what?
Yeah, cosmic horror. I think this is an author. There's a question at the end of what authors you would read from again, but this is definitely one for me.
I would also read from her again.
Interesting. As someone who's been cheated on, I liked this one. Yeah, this was fun. I guess I also didn't ask if people read this physically or as an audiobook. Was there different narrators for every single?
Different narrator for every story.
Nice.
Some were better than others.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess when you're hiring 19 voice actors, they're not all going to be.
Also, I wonder what story got picked off because 19 is a very odd number.
Yeah, I think maybe intentionally weird. That feels like something he would do. Maybe he had a story originally that didn't go into it.
I don't know, but I feel like you're so close to 20 and it would have been like right at 400 pages at that point. I feel like there's a conspiracy.
So many conspiracies. Okay, La Siren, I don't know how to pronounce that, by Aaron E. Adams. What'd you think?
I did not like this one. I said, this didn't do much for me because I don't like riddles.
Okay.
And I'm like, if because the riddle doesn't make sense because it's like, okay, give me one or I'll take 3. Well, you had one.
Yeah, they were like trying to figure out the riddle the whole time. They were like, does she want our seashells? Does she want our souls? Like, what are we talking about? I thought this was a really just like typical story. I've read from Aaron E. Adams. I really liked Jackal. This one just felt like a fairy tale, like a really typical story about sisters in the water, and I gave it a 3.
But this might be the only child in me, but I'm sorry. If the siren got my sister, I'm not going to exchange myself. That's so sad for her, and I miss her every day. But I'm going to stay on land.
That's fair. Oh, see, some people love this one. I think that's fair. This one seems like a 3 is kind of average and among everybody. I'm so sorry. Sally is like, this is my favorite anthology ever. We're like, trash. This one's trash. That one's trash. Oh no.
I'm sorry, I wouldn't.
Okay, let's get to a good one. The Rider by Tana Reeve Dew. Did you like it? I gave it a 4.
When are you gonna click on the good one?
No, Tana Reeve Dew is okay. Well, I get what you're saying about Jim Crow South, but I think this one was so in line with her novels that I think if you already like her, you'll probably like this one.
Last weekend I DNF'd the Reformatory. So I'm thinking Tana Reeve Dew is not for me, at least not in her current Jim Crow South era, because that is just not enjoyable to read about. And I was reading that during Black History Month, so that was a double L. But I don't think I understood it either. Like I understood what was going on in like the Bog Man and the Bog Man and the Sisters ended racism, and I didn't like it.
I think speaking of her novels, like you love a long novel, but I don't know that you love a long horror novel necessarily, because horror should be just like kind of pack a punch, and the Reformatory is long and it's not, it's different.
If I look at like the stack of horror novels that I pulled that I really enjoy, most of them are shorter. Like obviously we have a couple that are long, and my favorite is the one that was the most exhausting to read. But I don't think like I like to read about fictional things, fictional suffering, and like reading about. I'm from the South, so reading about Jim Crow horror is not fictional. It's not far enough removed for me to be like enjoying that in my spare time.
That's fair. It seems like people generally enjoyed this one. This was what the girls on the bus and I really liked the idea of there was somebody who was like sending messages inside people's minds, and that's a concept that I always think is really interesting. I just said that Tana Reeve Dew knows what she's doing. Like she has a goal and she has a plot with it. And that's what I appreciated about this, because there are so many stories in here that I didn't understand the point of. At least this one, I feel like she knew what she wanted to do with it, I think.
Do you think that some of these where it's like, this is a short story, some of the works feel like snippets of a larger work?
Absolutely. I think there are some authors who really thrive in a short story and pull off that like reveal twist. And they're the ones who are in so many anthologies, and they're the ones who, I don't know, they're just like known for their short stories. This being like new Black horror, a lot of them were new authors. A lot of them, I think, were just dipping their toe. And I don't even know how they got the opportunity to be in this anthology. You know what I mean? Like, because so many of them I haven't seen anything published from them. So it makes me just so curious. The most frustrating thing about this anthology to me is that Jordan Peele did not share his thoughts about the stories. And I said this about Book of Swords, which is just like, I love when the editor, and I think it's a necessity for an editor to write a longer intro about why he picked the stories, or after each story, give an explanation, a review even of like why it's in there, because he's not this unknown person. Like you picked this up because of him, and the fact that you don't get any of his thoughts, you don't get a story from him, is crazy to me. I want to know why he picked these.
I'm like, if this was edited by anyone else, I don't think as many people would be reading it.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing I did really like about Book of Swords, how like Gardner Dozois like put a little short snippet about, this is what this story is about. This is how this story like plays into the theme, the thematic of the whole anthology. And you know, these are my thoughts on it. Just like a little bit.
I also liked the intro, but it was a page and a half. And that's just not enough. Like I want to hear why you wanted to write the anthology, why you picked the stories, why you were the one who got to put this together.
Because he was looking for new projects for his production company.
He wanted the concepts. Yeah, some of the stories definitely felt like they were the first chapter of something and not a full concept. I don't know how to pronounce this.
I was saying like aesthete.
Yeah, it's aesthetic? So athlete? Like I just sound stupid saying it. By Justin C. Key. What'd you give this one?
Well, this one is sci-fi. For sure. This is 100% sci-fi. I'll probably give this like a 3.5. I said this one is odd, and I'd argue it's more literary sci-fi than horror, but I would love this as a full-length novel. There's a lot of material. And you have a romance, you have a conspiracy, you got a romance, you got a character who is, you know, hard to follow. There's like this social media element. Like they need to really develop this. And this will be a good thing to watch too.
Yeah, I hated it. I hated it so much. I don't know why I hated it. What did I say? I said I disliked it. I can't picture it. There was like the person was a piece of art, a POA, and it's just like I didn't understand. Like I couldn't grasp what it looked like. Was it a real human? Like what was it supposed to look like? And then when it was talking about this like person who could get upgrades, but also you could take pieces of its body, I just like I couldn't picture it, and I didn't think the description gave me enough. I thought it was really ambitious, but there was too many moving parts in it for me to really grasp onto the story.
This put me in the mind of Never Let Me Go. That's kind of how I was imagining it.
Agree, which I also hate. I think it could have been built out into something that I liked if it was a full length novel or if I did get to watch it. But yeah, that one was not for me. Pressure by Ezra Clayton Daniels. I gave this one a 3.5. This one, oh, this was about like the family. There was a family gathering, like a reunion, and our main character was an artist who's just talking to his like family members. There was like this obnoxious tech company that one of his cousins had, and at the end he was like, "Oh, he probably invited me to this activity because he wanted to have more diversity at his company." Wait, why did I give it a high rating? Oh, because it was just like apocalyptic. It wasn't horror again. It was like at the end, they all just like there was that white shining light, and they all just like their world ended.
For this one, now what's crazy is I read this morning, so it didn't stick with me. But I said I'm not really sure what happened, but it was interesting, and I'd read from this author again.
Perfect. It reminded me of like Leave the World Behind, which a lot of people don't like. Just the unexplained end of the world. Yeah, I think there was just like everything kept exploding because of all the pressure, and then eventually they all exploded. I just think that's fun.
Ah, the pressure.
Oh yes. Okay, this one I admittedly DNF'd, and I told Aaron that, so I said, "Aaron, you need." Oh wait, no, this wasn't the one I DNF'd. Sorry, no, this isn't the one I DNF'd. My bad. I gave this a 4. I actually really like this.
This is one of the best stories in the collection, but I do like grief horror. I do really like grief horror.
My bad. Oh my god, I can't believe I just betrayed Nnedi Okorafor like that.
You know, I felt like the grief horror just really resonates with me. But I feel like this was so visceral. Like I could really feel this connection that she had with her father, even though we never really saw that on the page because he's dead the entire time. But you really felt and like how everyone, like the cultural element of it all, where they're like, you're doing the wrong thing, like you know better. And it's like, oh, because you're an immigrant, because you are separated from your culture in this way, you don't know you don't know that you're doing the wrong thing. And everyone around her, like when the guy saw the ring, he was like, no, you have got to take that back. And how resistant she was to everything. And then like the sci-fi futuristic element of like her like ring alarm where she was checking out everything around her house and, you know, worrying about her dog. This one really worked for me.
But you still didn't give it a 5.
It wasn't that good.
Yeah, what I said was like I really needed a properly haunted story at this point in the anthology because we're like 12 stories deep, and this is a haunted object, and I love haunted object stories. So like her walking around with this ring and not fully accepting that that's the problem, is that she stole the ring. I love getting to learn that. Was there anything else I said? Oh, I said it had the potential to be a 5, but it needed like a twist, like a reveal, like a really impactful moment beyond the grief.
Like what if it was the dog?
I think this seems to be a lot of people's favorite. Next is Flicker by L.D. Lewis.
Flicker by L.D. Lewis. This one I said this is giving Purge meets Station 11. It wasn't scary, and I'm not sure what was going on.
Yeah, I also didn't quite get it, but I still gave it 3. It's like another apocalyptic story. We have that character who's like experiencing glitches in their vision, which is a really interesting concept to me. And then everybody kind of starts to have that happen. And it felt very much like The Purge. It was like a vague end of the world story. I only didn't give it a higher rating because I needed it to be longer. This is one that I would read as a whole book.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. Also, I can see this as like a mini series.
Oh yeah.
Because it starts out so normal where she's just in her brother's doctor's office, and then it quickly goes into something else. I'm like, there's like 200 pages that could happen in between those two things.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, now I'm just looking through everybody's. I think this one, I saw a lot of people on Goodreads absolutely love this one too. I wanted it to be my favorite, but it didn't quite get there for me.
I would read from this author again too.
Oh yeah, I don't think I wrote down if he's written anything else or they. I might not have looked into this author. I think it might have just been other short stories they had. This is the one that I DNF'd. So take it away. Tell me what it was about, because I honestly, like, at this point I was like halfway through and I hadn't loved a story, and so I was like, if I try to finish this, I'm gonna DNF the whole book. Like, it was exhausting.
Okay, so this is one of the longest stories in the collection.
Maybe that's why.
The audiobook is like 67 minutes for this part of the story. So we're following this young girl, and there's this entity or something in the water that they can't fish in the water. The fish are going away, whatever. And she goes to the water, whatever, and this fish like attaches itself to her leg, and it starts communicating with her. And so she goes to like I don't want to say a witch doctor, but like a communal witch doctor, basically, to like get the thing off this fish off her leg. And the doctor's like, if I do this, I may have to amputate the leg. We may have to do all those other things if like the spirit doesn't come off or whatever. And so what turns out is this fish head is like this 700-year-old entity from the water. And in their culture, you eat the other animals to like consume their knowledge. And that's why there haven't been any fish in the water, because they all have been consuming one another. And it's the last one left. And the girl is like, oh, so if I consume you, I'll have all your knowledge and I'll be the most powerful person, like the most knowledgeable person in this area. Mm-hmm. And she also, it's like this parasite, because it's making her like want to eat raw food. There's this one scene that I messaged you about when I was eating my lunch, where there's like this crushed hen and she has this desire for food, but not cooked food. And so she like picks the hen up and like sucks the blood and marrow out of the crushed hen. And eventually she like bargains with the fish, and the fish is like, I'm kind of going to kill myself basically. And I'm going to let you absorb me back into your body. Cause she's like, oh, I'm going to starve the fish out. So she throws away all her water. She sweats herself out and the fish gets really weak. And he's like, but I'm not going to let myself, like my knowledge be lost or whatever. And so he like transforms and like her leg regrows, and she is going to be the most strongest obeah woman of the world.
Okay. Did you like it?
No. But I knew I had to carry this particular short story. So I
was like, is she speaking with passion because she just made sure to really pay attention, or is it because she loved it?
I was like, let me tune in for this one.
Yeah, the people did not like this one, so it seems like I didn't miss out on a lot. A lot of people DNF'd it. Interesting. It sounds like it is like horror, Like there's some creepy moments, but
y'all, I was eating chicken tenders. That's
devastating. I wish I could have warned you about it, but I didn't know. I read maybe like, I want to say 10 pages of it. And I was like, I literally don't even know what's happening. Like, I was so confused.
And it was written in a dialect, and also the narrator had like a really thick accent as well. So I definitely think that's why a lot of people were turned off. It's like, And I don't think our main character was particularly likable.
Mm-hmm. I think people were saying they learned a lot from this story, which is great. I have another book from this author on my TBR, so I'm excited to read a full-length novel to see how it goes.
Based on this story, I don't think I want to read anything from that. And what I already know about their other works too, I'm just like, I don't think it's for me.
Okay, the next one is The Norwood Trouble by Maurice Broaddus.
I think this is another Jim Crow one. Yes, I said I'm tired of reading about Jim Crow.
You just have, that's all the thoughts. Yeah, this one I gave a 3. It was about, what was it about? This one was about like a lynch mob and night riders and the KKK. And we had a girl who was trying to figure out why her family, like why her father could stand up for himself, but why she didn't have that same power and why she didn't understand the protection that he was offering her. And I was like on board enough because it felt like realistic fiction. And I was like, okay, this is going to get horror in a realistic way. Finally, it's not going to be like surrealist. It's not going to be speculative. But then they got this circle together at the end and they used their like magical powers to stop everybody. And I was like, okay.
I didn't like that. And also, like, it read to me like she was a child. So it was obvious to me why she wouldn't go. And then I got angry when everyone is telling her not to do this thing. And then she's like, oh, I know they said I could go to the bakery. That's like in our safe zone. But I'm going to go to the ice cream shop. And then you are slapped in the face with racism and a white man sticks his tongue in your mouth. That was the horror.
Yeah. That this one really did mix well the horrors of reality with the horrors of the supernatural, which is like the intent of a lot of these. So at least it was successful in balancing the two. I didn't love it.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I forgot to check the people. Okay, a mix. No, we got a 5. We got a 5. We got 2s. Every story is across the board, which I think is just so fascinating about a collection like this. Because I know that we can all have such different feelings about novels, but even a short story that's just 10 pages, we can have such drastically different interpretations of, and I think that's so beautiful.
I love the comment where somebody said, this has nothing to do with Aaron, but even the synopsis has me drifting.
Yeah, a long one. A Grief of the Dead by Ryan Amilcar Scott. Or how did I pronounce it? I wrote it down. Rion.
This story pissed me off so bad. I said, I'm about to block this author because I don't even need nothing of theirs to come up on my feed.
Oh no.
Because first of all, why does a short story have chapters? That's the first thing. Why does a short story have chapters and sections? I think that is unethical. That's my personal opinion. And I'm so sorry, but I know grief is just a crazy thing. And it's illogical. It's all these things. But embezzling from your business to stage a mass shooting masquerading as a hate crime so that you can die in a similar way to your brother, not even counting all the other people that are going to die as a result, and the foolishness with the sister and the birds. Like, how do these things go together?
It was wacky. I still gave it a 3 because I thought it was interesting. Like it did keep my attention. It was too long and it had too many ideas. And I did write down, like, I don't understand what is with the birds and the screeching and how it's related. But like, it reminded me a little bit of Eric LaRocca, who I know doesn't work for everybody, but I liked that there was some queer inclusion in here. It felt like something that Eric LaRocca would have written, just like going on this message board and being like, I want to die. Like, come help me.
On the message board, somebody should shoot up this park. Somebody should shoot up this park. Paying $250,000 to be hate crime is crazy. I can't. It was making me so mad.
That's it. I love an unhinged main character, so
1 star. If I could give it 0 stars, I would, but I can't, so I'm gonna give it a 1.
It was also zombie-ish, and I was like, all right.
Like the scene where his sister like started screeching like the bird, and then the bird came and tore her apart. I'm like, was she asking for her? Like, was that her aim? Is that like what she communicated it? The screech is like, what?
Yeah, it was an interesting time. I feel like I would read from this author again. We had Bird Stings by the Etching Tree by Nicole D. Cianers.
This is the one that I wrote, so you got it.
No, this was one of my favorites. This is my second favorite of the collection. I wanted just a little bit more from it, and I feel like it could have been the perfect short story if it did something very specific. This is about 2 ghost girls on the side of the highway who lost their lives, and it's kind of like a slice of life. We're just learning about how they died. And they decide to create this game, like where the first person to kill 21 people wins, and the thing that they win is like learning like the other person's ability. And I think that's something that was really interesting because I love ghosty stories, and I love the idea that the rules are unclear, and so different ghosts have different abilities. So like one of them could leave, like one of them could go further than the other one, and one of them could like heal scars. And I just wanted I wanted to learn more about it. I would read this as a full-length book. I gave it a 4, maybe a 4.5. What I think it needed to do was there needed to be like a twist, like a reveal. I wanted one of the girls to be responsible for the other girl's death. That's what I wanted, for that to be what happened. And then also they were like, when they kill people, they would like push their trucks off the cliff after. And I wanted it to be like I wanted there to be a moment where they were like, our goal is to get the highway shut down because obviously it's so dangerous for people to be driving here and the government won't do anything about it. So if we stage all of these car accidents, then they'll shut it down and we'll have like this vengeance moment. That's what I wanted from the story. And I thought it was going there, but then it didn't.
Yeah, I have no recollection of the story, and I read it maybe 3 hours ago. It didn't have. It just rolled right off.
Okay, people seem to like it. I liked it. So, yeah, the ending was just a little too quick. Okay, then we have An American Fable by Chesia Burke.
Once again, my comment says, I'm so over the Jim Crow of it all.
Erin, I gave this like 4.5.
This is the story where with the soldier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the first part, I was like, okay, I hate it, but I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And I'm like, they thought you were getting treated better in Europe, the black soldiers, than they were in America. Okay, I'm with it. And then he's getting beat up, stomped to death by the white people. And then the little girl is like, so we're gonna
Come to my house.
They're like, she's gonna be a part of your lineage. And I'm like, huh? How are these two things connected?
I loved it. I love like a cyclical story. So when the woman, like the guardian of the house, was like, this is your daughter. And when she's like fully like at the top of her power, you have to bring her back here so she can like fulfill her role. And I thought it was so cool. It lost me a little bit when he had to like go underwater and do something. I was like, well, I don't know what's going on anymore.
But the flood
yeah, like he had to prove himself. It was a good time. Okay, I got some people who agree with me. A lot of 3s though. But every single, this happened with Book of Swords too. If you go back to the Book of Swords live show, it was so fun because Erin literally would give something 5 stars and I would give it 1. It was crazy. It was my favorite time. Okay, then we had Your Happy Place by Terrence Taylor.
This would be an excellent like episode of Black Mirror or mini series or movie. I would eat this movie. I actually really enjoyed the story. Like I hated it because I hated what was happening, but I actually really enjoyed. Like I love like your reality is altered. Like I really enjoyed that. And like how his happy place was taking down the corruption that he was dealing with, and like as much as this one is also about modern day slavery and how literally everything that they're doing is legal under the 13th Amendment, which is bananas. And the guy's like, you keep fighting back. You keep coming back to this place and you make this reality where you've beaten me, but we're going to keep going until I can solve it. And I'm just like, the capitalist demon in me is like, yeah, this is so smart. Like AI powered people. Okay. But I'm like, this is actually horrible and horrifying. You want to rate the star?
This is my 5 star. It was like a sci-fi, but it was my perfect, like I've read so many books like this where you think you know what's happening and then the book switches and you like were confused the entire time. Like that's my favorite reading experience, is when you're tricked as the reader. Like that's everything that I want from a book. And I love that it talked about prison reform and it had the conversations about slavery and the abuse of the privatization of prisons. I think that's so important to mention. But then also the twist of like, you thought that you were taking down the establishment this whole time, but you were actually like a piece of it, is so fucking good.
And I think this contrasts with a lot of other stories in this collection, because I feel like it did talk about slavery. It did talk about like prison reform, but I feel like it was a lot more nuanced, and it kind of led you to the water and let you form your own opinions about it
Absolutely.
versus being as like heavy-handed as some of the other stories in the collection. Because I feel like it's clear if you're paying attention, you can see everything that's happening. You can see the thought processes and like the thought experiment that's happening with this thing, or how like modern day slave, how this is modern day slavery, but we're just taking it to like another level with like the AI. But I just feel like I would absolutely read something else from this author. Like I want to look up and see what they have, because I think this was superb.
Yeah, it was an excellently written story. Like it was the perfect length. It was the perfect writing. I think the reason that I liked it is because it didn't feel like horror to me. It felt like sci-fi. It was a sci-fi story. Obviously, there's horrific things happening, but it didn't feel like, oh my God, I'm going to scare you type of story. It was sci-fi specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And I like a sci-fi. This does seem to be everybody's favorite, so that's amazing. Hide and Seek by P. Djeli Clark. What'd you give it?
I also wrote...
Yeah, you also don't really love stories about addiction. I think we talked about that with Book of Swords. And I think when I was reading this, I was like, I don't think Erin's really going to love this one.
I didn't like it. I like that I didn't know what was happening until the end. Like similarly to Hide and Seek, where it's like you get to the end of the story and it like reframes everything that you already had read and you want to go back to it. Like that was interesting. So I think it's well written, but I didn't particularly enjoy it. But I think it was effective, like someone said.
I think having read 2 P. Djeli Clark novels or novellas, you can really tell that he wrote this. Like you could not put his name attached to it. I could read all 19 of these and I could pick his out so easily. It felt like his work. And I think that that's nice as an author when you can really recognize something unique that they have. This is the one about the mom who's protecting her 2 boys from danger. And she was like playing this hide and seek game, but it turns out that she was actually protecting them from herself because her addiction to, what do they call it? Junk, which was like offshoots of magic, was making her physically like dangerous. There was this one scene, this one was horror. Like there was a scene where, was it the dad? He like his whole body like turned inside out and he was like throwing up flesh and stuff. That was crazy.
Mm-hmm. This was very like, the imagery in this one was very like visual. I can't even, my words aren't wording tonight, but you can really visualize what was happening in here.
Okay, we're on to the last one, Origin Story by Tochi Onyebuchi. Please tell me you have thoughts about this because I can't even like frame what this was.
Like I finished this collection at 5 o'clock, right at like 5 o'clock. So this wasn't even 2 hours ago. Like I said, this was weird, and I'm not really sure I know what happened. A very interesting note to end it on, I think.
Yeah, I think ending it on this from the perspective of a bunch of white kids was interesting.
Yeah, like we're decentered. What are you doing?
Yeah, I think obviously it was done intentionally. I don't know if I fully grasped like why or what he was going for, the editor or the author. It was written kind of like a play, like it was a lot of dialogue, which I also think is a good way to end it because I've said before, an anthology that has like a pure dialogue or just like something that plays with form in the middle of the story, I hate it so much. If you're not going to have like 5 stories that do something different, like this was good. Leave it at the end. So I'm not thrown off by it. I don't even know what it was. I honestly, like, I can't even tell you what the point of it was. The classmates were discussing like what it means to be white, how they feel about it. I don't know. They were like acknowledging their privilege within it, but they were also like glorifying marginalization. But I don't know the point. Someone's gonna have to spell it out for me here. It was a type of philosophical conversation I had in philosophy class.
And they were like trying to figure out also how to like to recenter themselves. Like, oh, if we invite, like there's one where they invite this like Latino or Hispanic girl, and they're like, oh, but she's not Mexican, she's Puerto Rican, or she's Indian, or something like that. And it's like, well, okay, if we do this, then we'll seem like we're the good guys. And I was just like, where are we going? Like, what is the point? What is the point?
Yeah. Also with Tochi Onyebuchi, though, this absolutely aligns with his work. Like this feels like something he would have written. I read things from him. They're strange. Like they're very much rooted in reality and he has a lot of things to say, but they're also just so weird and insufferable. Satire. Yeah, I didn't get it. I can't explain it to anybody because I don't get it.
Yeah.
That's a note to end it on. Okay. Here's the question I don't know how to answer. Who would you recommend this to?
Nobody.
Maybe people who have never read horror. Like I wouldn't recommend it necessarily to people just broadly who love horror or who love anthologies because I don't think it is successful at either of those things necessarily. But if you've never read horror, you're going to be introduced to like at least 10 authors who have full-length novels, and then you can read more. You can read fantasy from them because they have fantasy novels.
And that's the thing. I'm like, I don't feel like most of this was horror. I feel like if you were a fan of Black Mirror and you've been having an urge to experience Black Mirror again, but you want to try reading books, but also no one that I like.
No.
So
Wouldn't recommend it. Oh no. See, this is not good for a book club that I forced everyone to read it. That it wasn't like a lot of people's favorites. But I also think it was so fun after like 4 years of the book club that we read something completely different.
mm-hmm.
Do you want to sum up? Everybody, give us your top 3. Mine were A Bird Sings by The Etching Tree, the one about the ghost girls, and then Your Happy Place by Terrence Taylor, which was the sci-fi prison one, and An American Fable by Chesia Burke, which was the cosmic horror girl in the woods. But then also, what was the last one? Oh, shoot. Oh, the weird one, the weird Frankenstein-y one by Violet Allen.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I can say top 3. Top 4 is what I can do. I know I can do top 4. It would be The Other One by Violet Adams. That's the Frankenstein one. It would be The Aesthete by Justin C. Key, the sci-fi piece of art one. It would be Dark Home by Nadia Okorafor, the grief horror, and Your Happy Place by Terrence Taylor.
We have such similar favorites. Like, and I feel like at that point, it's not even like opinion based. There are ones that we can both objectively look at that were done well.
I would probably say Your Happy Place is my absolute favorite.
Yeah, that one I would take and put in a collection of like my favorite short story collections that I would recommend people read. I don't think I would recommend, like, I'm not going out of my way. I mean, I did it to, 10,000 of you. But I wouldn't recommend just to the average person, like, hey, go buy this full price. You absolutely need to read it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that we did. Okay. What authors would you read from again? I think we talked about that kind of during it. But if you want to also pop that in the comments. I am excited to read from Violet Allen again, for sure. And Chesia Burke, Chesia Burke is an author that I have read from in the Dark Stars anthology, and I think I also gave high ratings to that one. So the cosmic horror that she does, I would read from.
It's looking like Terrence Taylor only has like one book. The other things are
really?
and it's like a vampire book.
Oh,
the other
maybe I
thing,
need it.
Horror, vampires, paranormal, fantasy fiction from 2009. Everything else is like short story.
There's the potential that like this kicks off, because so many people are going to pick this up because of Jordan Peele's name being on it. These authors maybe who just have one short story and don't have a lot of other published work, maybe this is their real moment to get acclaim and to now just pump out a whole bunch of books for us.
And maybe we'll start seeing some new announcements from Jordan Peele's like, this is based on that story.
I could see it. Maybe it's kind of like the Reese's book club thing where she gets the film rights to every single book that she picks as her book club. Like that's part of the contract when she signs a book up for it to be included. You have to sign off on the film rights if she ever wants to make a film. So maybe that's part of their contract. We'll never know, except we will. Any other book or I wrote movie recommendations because I know a lot of people don't love anthologies or haven't read a ton of them. So you might not have any recommendations, but I would love to hear your recommendations besides Black Mirror, which is like the most obvious one, for things that you would recommend if you liked it or if you didn't like it. You haven't read a lot of anthologies, so I don't know if you've got anything.
I've only read 2.
And I wouldn't recommend Book of Swords. Well, I would if this was your first short story collection and you didn't have a good time. Book of Swords is a good time.
I would say if you want, like for Book of Swords, if you want to get into adult fantasy and you don't know what authors to try out, I would recommend then reading Book of Swords, because like the author that I read from that I like the most, the one we like the most, KJ Parker, I read one of his novellas this year and I was like, wow, he's really doing something special.
Okay, The Blackening. I know I've heard of that one. Out There by Kate Folk. Yeah, I was trying not to think of ones that just have one singular author, but Kate Folk definitely comes to mind. Appreciate that one. Never Whistle at Night is an Indigenous horror anthology. I liked that one, right? I think I did. Yeah. Eric LaRocca is a good place to go if you liked these ones. Mm-hmm. They're definitely weird.
We have this one. This is like his fantasy horror one. Oh, with the bugs and the critters. Oh, this was so good.
Oh, Friday Black, I'm reading soon. I'm so excited. Oh yeah, Cursed by Bora Chung. Great recommendation. At Home with the Horrors is one that I'm excited to read soon. In this context, I wanted to make sure I was highlighting Black authors specifically because of this collection and what I'm so glad that it's doing in the publishing space. Then since it's speculative, I have 2 anthologies that are so fucking good. Like, I'm telling you, so incredible speculative stories. This is A Phoenix Must First Burn. It's edited by Patrice Caldwell. It's 16 stories of Black girl magic. It's so good. And then this one I read just last year. It's called Africa Risen, a new era of speculative fiction, edited by Sheree Renee Thomas, and authors' names who I can't pronounce. I'm so sorry. I'm not going to try. This one is so excellent, and it's thick. It's a long one. And like every collection, there's going to be ones that aren't good. You know, like that just happens. But these are my 2 absolutely top-rated ones.
Based on this collection, are there any authors that you would consider featuring on the book club?
Oh my God, great question. I think ones who have already established work, I would if I hadn't already read them. Like my experience with Tananarive Due from here, I would have thought, okay, let me check out some books from her, but I've already read from her. And I don't know if her books lend themselves well to like, they're not pure horror either. They have so much family stuff and other things going on. I would say Terrence Taylor, if I didn't assume his books were sci-fi, which I kind of feel like that's what it is. I don't think there's many else that I would consider because they didn't feel like horror to me. And we only read, like, this is a horror thriller book club. We only read 3 horror books a year, and they have to be horror, like, or I'll get torn apart. And this one I already messed up on because it wasn't. So
there's no way to know that like the majority of 19 stories wouldn't be horror. Like,
right? Yeah, that's a great question though. Do I have anything else before? Oh no, I have to leave. Oh, actually, I have 2 more. Okay, wait. I have these 2 collections. These aren't Black authors specifically, but this is Indigenous authors, and this one is all queer stories. So this is an anthology of monstrous fiction and poetry. It's not horror. It's like weird speculative. This one, plus like the cover. Come on, this is incredible.
I have all those on my TBR because of you.
Oh my God, I love that. And then this one is, it came out a long time ago. I think it got republished though. It's called Love Beyond Body, Space, and Time, an Indigenous LGBT sci-fi anthology. This is one of my favorites and my highest rated one. So I wouldn't recommend these. Like I would recommend these instead of Out There Screaming. That's what I think when we're talking about speculative fiction. Yeah, I think that's it. I do have to get to a hockey game, so I'm keeping the outro short and sweet. We're currently reading Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto. I figured it out in the month of March, and that live show will probably be at the beginning of April. Thank you all so much for joining. And I'm excited that I introduced a lot of people to anthologies. I don't know if this one was the right one, but I think we had a generally good time. Thank you so much to Erin for joining and carrying this discussion with me. Even though we really didn't like a lot of things, I think that's okay. And everybody got to, geek out about their favorites because something went well for somebody. It doesn't seem like anybody completely hated everything. So that's beautiful. And I'll see you later. Bye.